Ready, set, go!
Registration is now open for the Middle States Commission on Higher Education 2023 Annual Conference. It's in Philadelphia, December 4th through 6th, 2023, setting the standard transformation through accreditation. You don't want to miss it. Register now at msche.org.
Surprise!
We're taking the EdUp Experience podcast to Insights EDU. Join us for an incredible higher education marketing and enrollment management conference, February 20th to 22nd in Phoenix, Arizona. Register now at insightsedu.com and use promo code EdUp to save $50 off your registration. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Salustio back with you here on another episode. And one episode that I am very excited to have because we're going to talk a little bit about marketing. And of course, for those of you that don't know, I feel like I'm talking very fast today, but I'll try to slow it down. For those of you that don't know, I also, as the Chief Experience Officer at Lindenwood University in St. Charles, Missouri, also oversee marketing for my institution. So I got a lot of questions of my two guests. They're going to tell me what I don't know, which is important, right? And then they're going to tell you a little bit about this really little thing that they're cooking up, right? This little thing that they're putting a little bit of their time into that you'll want to know about if you are in, around, or interested in marketing for higher education. So I feel like I've built them up. Is that a appropriate build up? Before I get to them, see, you like that? Before I get to them, I do want to remind my audience of two things. One, we wrote a book. I've said it about 700 times in this podcast called Commencement, the Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education. If you haven't picked up a copy on Amazon, you are missing out. Of course, it is based on our first 125 presidents that we interviewed on this podcast, and all of the insights they provide are about the future of higher education, some of which is already starting to come true around us. So don't forget to pick up your copy. And of course, if you've seen us in person, you know we do this live at conferences across the country, and where we set up an EdUp Experience podcast station and interview people at or on location. So don't forget about us as you're planning your event. Hint, hint to my guests. Let's bring them in one at a time, ladies and gentlemen. First, here she is, the one and only. She's Myla Edmond. She's an Associate VP for Communications and Marketing at Cal State Dominguez Hills. Myla, welcome to the podcast microphone. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. Super excited to have this conversation with you today.
All right. Well, if it was just two of us, it'd be boring. There has to be one more person to spice it up, right? Here he is. I'm going to get his last name right. He made me practice before this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Jendraszak, Assistant Vice President for Marketing at Emory University. Did I get your last name right? That's my most important question.
You did. Thank you very much. Really happy to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
As a Salustio, I know what it's like to have people butcher your last name, so I always try to do my best. How are you guys doing? What's, marketers, fellow marketers unite. Let's, it's kind of like Voltron. We're coming together in the interest of marketing, right?
That's right.
Most importantly, in what I was talking about at the beginning, is that you guys are not just high-level marketers for your institutions. You're also the co-chairs of the American Marketing Association Symposium for Higher Education. First of all, congratulations. And two, wow, that's no small feat. So how are you, first of all, Myla, we'll start with you. How do you come in to be a co-chair of the AMA Symposium for Higher Ed? Why do you want to be a co-chair? What's all involved in being a co-chair? And let's go from there.
Yeah, so I actually joined the committee. This is my fifth go around on the committee, and just started as a committee member. I've been a observer, participant in AMA Higher Ed Symposium for many years, and just thought it was a really well put together program with great content, and the community of people that attend are fantastic. And so I was always interested in being involved in how that conference was made. And so I just met a few people who were on the committee and got asked if I was interested, and I definitely said yes. I had no intention of becoming the co-chair, but when I was asked if I wanted to co-chair the conference, I said yes, and here I am. This is the second time I'm serving as co-chair. Certainly happy to have Stephen at the reins with me. He's been a great partner, but it's just a really good set of community members, not only participants, but on the committee. And it's been fun. It is a lot of work, but I love that everyone on the committee is committed to making sure that it is a productive and well-rounded experience.
Tell them like it is.
Stephen, what about you? How do you come in to be a co-chair of the AMA Symposium for Higher Ed? Why did you want to do it? And from your perspective, what's all entailed in pulling something like this off?
Yeah, my story is pretty similar to Myla's. I had been attending the conference pretty regularly for years, presented several times, volunteered to moderate roundtables. I joined the committee kind of in the middle of the most intense period of the pandemic. This is my third year on the committee. But the way I became co-chair is a little bit over a year ago. Myla and I were sitting in a bar and she asked me to, and I was honored to be asked and very happy to say yes.
Wow, okay. So let's just have the general conversation, you guys. Because I went to the AMA Symposium of Higher Education in 2019. I think it was 2019, and in that year, my institution won the award for the team of the year, marketing team of the year. I was at a university called Claremont Lincoln University, a small startup university, and so those awards are a really kind of cool part of the conference. But Myla, back to you. What does it take to pull something like this off, and how many people are we expecting? Because I know it's got to be in the thousands.
So what it takes is a lot of intention. Everyone who's on the committee has attended at least one conference. That's one of our requirements. And so they've been there as a participant. They know what people expect because that's what they expected. And so there's just a lot of intention. It requires creativity. And in some ways it requires kind of looking at it through fresh eyes, because there are certain things that we want to make sure the standard is the same, but we're also trying to improve. And so everything from looking at the session proposals that we receive to even how we ask for session proposals. And I'll give an example. Over the last 5 years, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging has become increasingly important. And we weren't getting a lot of sessions that were covering that type of content. So we actually rewrote our invitation for proposal submissions so that we encourage people to provide sessions and to provide content that would focus on that. And in addition, we reinforced that messaging by making sure we had keynote speakers who could participate in that conversation as well. I would also add that just having a committee full of people who are interested in advancing our industry is very helpful. It helps us figure out not only what would be strong content that's submitted, but what kind of content we need that may not be submitted, as I shared with the example with DEIJ.
Anything to add to that, Stephen?
Yeah, I would just add that, I mean, a big chunk of the work the committee does is reviewing the proposals. And a big part of what makes the AMA Symposium stand out in our industry is that peer review of all the content. So you know that what you're hearing is stuff that folks have really sweated over the review process and deciding what's going to be a good fit for our audience. We had, I'm trying to remember, Myla, hundreds of proposals for a total of like 35 slots, I think. So it's there we go. So it's a lot of work
down
to review.
56, is that?
256. So
Yeah,
256 down to 30 slots, essentially.
That is amazing.
You know, when you talk about, Myla, you kind of said the state, you said with intention, right? And it's the people who want to advance the profession. I want to take you back to 2019 when I was there and I was sitting in the audience and there was a keynote speaker. If I could remember her name, I would say it. But she had recently either written or was writing a book about marketing in higher education. And so she's giving one of the keynotes and she says something like, oh, he's got it.
How to Market a University.
Teresa Flannery. That was it. Yeah, Teresa Flannery, How to Market a University. Oh, we got 2 copies. There you go. All right. And she asked the audience a question, and it was something to the effect of, how many of you at your institution have marketing or communications or a combination of those? having a seat at the highest level, a seat at the table, as it were. And I mean, I swear there was probably like 50, 60 tables in there, maybe more. And there might have been, 5% to 10% of people that raised their hand. That's 2019. Fast forward through a pandemic, fast forward as we get closer to an enrollment cliff. What's the sense from the membership, from those attending? Is that changing from your view and your own institutions, or those that from your colleagues across higher ed? Stephen, you want to start with that one?
Sure, happy to start. I mean, our good partners at Simpson Scarborough do a study every 2 years, Myla, where they survey CMOs in American higher education. And the data they find suggests that, yes, increasingly marketing and communications is reporting directly to the president and sitting on that cabinet or president's leadership team or whatever the body is called. I personally have had experience both ways in my career. At Ball State University, marketing was part of a division with enrollment. So the VP for enrollment, marketing, and communications sat on the cabinet. At my previous institution, Augsburg, I was the AVP for marketing and communications. So I was the most senior marketing communications person, but I was not on the cabinet. And here at Emory, my boss, Luke Anderson, our vice president, is on the president's leadership team. So I think it's still a mix, but it seems to be heading in the direction of marketing and communications having a seat at that most senior table.
Myla, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's dependent on the infrastructure of the campus. And so as Stephen mentioned, if you, as the marketing function reports to advancement, then likely your advancement VP is the one at the table. But if you are not under advancement, likely the marketing person is at the table. I do see that changing, and it's a good change. I don't see it changing as quickly as I would like it to, because marketing is just too important, especially as we think about challenges that we have as an industry, to not be at the table. And we can't just be seen as an afterthought, and we can't just be seen as transactional. We have to be part of the strategic conversation.
Nailed it.
You know, it's marketing reporting into advancement is one of the things about higher ed that has just this, me personally, in my opinion, that never has made any sense to me, because advancement, who's typically after donations, and marketing, who's after branding or, dare I say, lead generation, especially in an environment when many institutions are facing enrollment challenges. Do you think that, Myla, back to you, do you think that the change, although maybe not as fast, has happened because of direct enrollment influence? Is it that? Is it, where institutions got CARES money and they spent money on marketing perhaps, and then they went, oh wait, all that money's spent, so we really need to do marketing now because we saw this benefit? Or is it in response to something? Is it marketing just becoming more important as a strategic initiative?
I would love to say that it's in response to marketing becoming more important to leadership. I think it depends on the institution, though. My institution, marketing was under advancement until recently. Prior to me joining, it was under advancement. I think that there was a change because they wanted to have a shift to seeing that marketing was also reflected in presidential type communication and presidential events. And so that was a challenge with it being under advancement, because it seemed like it was a level under, and they almost had to go under advancement to see if they would be approved to do these things. And now at our institution, marketing is actually under the office of the president.
Victory!
And so I think it's dependent on the institution and what, the president, what leadership is after. Hopefully, though, we are going to a place where each institution sees marketing as its own division and not seen as underneath something else. It's just too important.
Stephen, what do you think?
I share your point of view on it, that it's kind of unusual that for most institutions of higher education, at least that I've worked with, but I think it's generally true across our industry, they're more dependent on tuition revenue than they are on philanthropy. And so it seems like if marketing is going to be paired with another unit, enrollment for most institutions is the right choice. That's not true for every institution. When I was at Augsburg, we, through a shared services agreement, also did the marketing for Luther Seminary, which is a large Lutheran seminary in St. Paul. And for them, every student is fully scholarshiped. So revenue is not coming from admissions. Revenue is coming from philanthropy.
Interesting. What are the hot topics, you guys? You look through, okay, so you look at hundreds of proposals, you choose 56, but that doesn't mean that you can't include all of the hot topics. You have to select from hot topics, right? What's hot right now in the world of higher education marketing? I think I know some of the answers, but I want you to tell me, and I want you to tell me what we don't know. Stephen, we'll start with you on this one. What's hot? What are people asking you know more about?
There were a number of proposals, and we've seen a lot of interest in polling of our audience in AI. And a lot of our institutions are taking a research position that's leadership in that space. But I think our profession's questions are more around how do we make use of AI to make our work more efficient, to simplify administrative tasks, to start brainstorming in AI and take it to the team and use that as a way to get the conversation started, all those kind of things. So there were a lot of proposals in that area. After our changes to the call for proposals, we did get a lot in the DEI and justice space, which we were really excited about. And then, as you said, there's always, over the past decade or so, questions about the enrollment cliff and discussions about the changing shape of what the potential student body, at least traditional age student body, is going to look like for American higher education, and the persistent declines in trust and confidence and seeing the value of higher education. I think those are key topics.
Myla?
Yeah, I think Stephen hit all the hot topics. I will say there's always tried and true case studies. People want to talk about
Epic.
this was my issue. This is what we did to solve it. So we do see a high number of session proposals that cover case studies.
Should you register for the Middle States Commission on Higher Education annual conference this December 4th through 6th in Philadelphia?
100%.
I agree, because the title of the conference is called Setting the Standard, Transformation Through Accreditation. There is no time like the present to explore opportunities in higher education and the future for our students and our business model. Get out and network with your peers this December 4th through 6th at the Middle States Commission on Higher Education annual conference.
Attention.
Are you ready to elevate your institution's marketing and enrollment strategies? Join the EdUp Experience podcast at the Insights EDU conference, February 20th to 22nd in Phoenix, Arizona. Don't miss out on this opportunity to hear from engaging speakers from industry-leading companies like Google, LinkedIn, Adobe, and higher ed leaders. Learn the latest marketing and enrollment strategies to grow your programs. Register now at insightsedu.com and use promo code EdUp to save $50 off your registration.
Attention.
You brought up something, Stephen, that we talk about all the time, and I try to ask it of particularly of all the presidents that I interview, which is what do you think about this whole value conversation, and where do we stand on it? And what I keep coming back to, and this is just one of my personal takeaways, is that I think we have a packaging problem in higher education, and that's happened in two ways. One, because when all of the negative, the narrative started happening around a degree's not worthwhile, or you don't need a college education, higher ed didn't really fight back. It's not like, a group of people got together and said, we disagree with the public. It just generally, we're used to kind of taking hits, and so we just kind of accepted all these hits. What happens over time when you hear something over and over again and nobody gives you a different perspective, all of a sudden you start to believe it, which is basically, in my opinion, what happened with public perception. That it started with ROI, right? It started with ROI, and then it became, is it valuable at all? And if you go back to that ROI conversation, it always started with a financial calculation. ROI. And one of the big questions that I think we have as educators, and I'm getting to the marketing point here, I usually have long-winded questions, so you have to try to remember what I said. But you ROI, and you say, if it is strictly financial, we have something to talk about. But if we truly believe that there is an alternative way to calculate a return on investment that isn't all financial, we're not doing a very good job of communicating that. We just allowed this to take place across higher education. What are your thoughts around this value conversation? What are you hearing from people? What do they want to hear from speakers at the conference?
Yeah, Myla and I were on a panel last week where this was one of the questions we talked about. And something that stood out to me, you may have seen about a week or two ago, the New York Times Magazine had their education issue. And they had two stories focused around ranking selective institutions in the United States by the percentage of their student body that are Pell eligible. And those two stories were paired with one, of course, about people increasingly questioning the value of higher education. And I think they're on to something with that packaging, because I think there is a component to the loss of trust in higher education that comes from people's general loss of trust in institutions. And there's a component that is political and comes from people on certain sides of the partisan divides concerned about what's happening in the classroom. But I think there's a really big part. We saw the trust in higher ed plummet after Varsity Blues. A big part of the lack of trust is people seeing us not as we present ourselves as engines of social mobility, but as a system designed to replicate and preserve privilege for those who already have it. And I heard on your episode maybe a week or two ago with some community college presidents, they were decrying that same issue, rightly saying our institutions are here to break the cycle of poverty, and yet they get lumped in with our industry as a whole and this perception that it's about high cost institutions that are replicating privilege for those who can afford it.
Well said. Myla, what do you have to add to that? What do you think?
Yeah, my first thought was about perpetuating privilege. I think that's part of the issue, but I think related to that is we've kind of gotten into this space where the universities that rank the highest traditionally without considering social mobility are the ones who are perpetuating that privilege. And so we have to really come up with a way, and I think there are bodies that are trying to reevaluate these rankings, and some people are saying we shouldn't even be doing them at all. We really have to come up with a way to understand what is it that higher ed is supposed to be serving, what are we supposed to be doing, and making those rankings, if we need them, based on that, instead of historically, higher ed has been a very segregated space. And so
that's a fact.
Gotten to a place
that's a fact.
Where you're kind of going back to your mission, vision, and values, and you really have to evaluate if they still make sense in 2023, because the way that they started was not to become this place of return on investment, and they weren't interested in accessibility.
The really good points, you guys, and it resonates with me for sure. And you wonder, and you tie this to marketing, and you think about institutions that are positioning themselves to be on those rankings, right? That's the way that they have decided their value proposition is best served. And another institution that thinks that they're going to win something by competing with that, then changes their position, or the way that they're communicating to be lumped in. And we do that, right? And we get back to marketing and with the terms that we use. I actually put out a LinkedIn post yesterday, day before. What day is today? Wednesday. Yesterday, I think. And I said, we're really bad in higher ed about defining the who and the what, right? We say students. Okay. Students. Who are we talking about? Are we talking about on-ground students, online students, residential, part-time, full-time? Talking about adult students? Are we talking about working learners? Are we, talking about micro-credentials? What type of student are we talking about? We do the same thing with institutions. We say higher education as an enrollment cliff. Is that community colleges? Is it HBCUs? Is it public, private? Is it your Ivy Leagues? I mean, who are we talking about? I think that's where the packaging problem comes in, is because we lose definition. We just create these blanket terms to describe everybody, and we don't all serve the same type of learner. What are you expecting out of this conference? Are you guys, when you sit down as a committee and you look at all the things happening and you look at higher ed as a whole, what's the outcome? What makes a successful symposium for you? Is it feedback? Is it what is it? And Myla, you start. What are you hoping for with the symposium?
Well, I already know what sessions are going to be presented, right? And so
you don't want to go through all 56 here live on the EdUp Experience podcast?
Maybe the next
Surprise.
podcast we can do that. But what I'm looking for and what I always see as positive is partly the feedback, but it's feedback on site. When I see people engaging with the content that they're listening to and furiously taking notes and talking to each other when the sessions are over and engaging with one another over lunch, staying to ask the presenters questions. You see them connecting on social media in real time. We're going to have to figure that out because I don't know how many people are going to be on X this year. But it's that engagement outside of the sessions that for me feels very authentic. And it's almost like you get this buzz of energy. And then the other side of it is just knowing that this community actually enjoys each other's company and seeing them talk with each other socially too. For me, that is a successful symposium. In addition to the fact that just the sessions are providing people with productive, helpful, insightful ideas for them to take back to their home campuses.
Stephen, over to you. Same question. What's going to define a successful symposium?
Yeah, I agree with Myla, and I'll just add some personal anecdotes to it. I mean, the way I always pitch AMA to someone who doesn't know what it is yet is it's where higher ed marketing comes together. And I have been going consistently for over a decade because it's paid benefits for my institutions that I've served and for me personally. You know, when I was at a public university, Ball State in Indiana, the first time that I met two senior marketing leaders at a private Lutheran university, Cal Lutheran. And little did I know, a year or two later, I would be considering a job at one of their sister schools. I would need to reach out to those folks and talk to them about what Augsburg University was like. When I first got to Augsburg, I was presenting at AMA, and I happened to mention in my presentation that I needed a project management solution for my new team. And someone came out from the audience afterwards and said, hey, you should try what's now known as Litho. And that's what we ended up going with there. So my institutions have gotten benefit. And certainly my recent transition to Emory came in part because of the networking I've done through the conference. So it's benefited me professionally as well.
That's awesome. You know, it is all about networking. I do, Myla, to your point, it's the conversation when somebody comes out of a session and they go, did you see that? Like, what's that about? I can't believe so-and-so's doing that. Those are the really organic things that come from a really successful symposium. How many people do you expect in general? Do you sit down and go, it's 3,000, 30,000? I mean, I don't know what your goal is. I'm assuming it's probably around 3,000 to 5,000 if I had to guess, but what are you typically shooting for in terms of registrants?
Well, the energy feels 3,000 to 5,000, but we're hoping to be around 1,500.
Okay, that's still good. I mean, if you think about, I think you're going to get more this year. I really do, and I think that there's so much marketing is so important right now. The need to stem the tide of enrollment loss, AI, DEI. It seems like marketing has never been more important, and I think institutions are putting more investment in their people. I hope that's the case. Why don't we try to get 2,000 over at the AMA Symposium, guys? Get 2,000. Are you guys ready for 2,000? You can handle it?
We can handle it. The program has been set. What's another 500 people?
That's right. Stephen and Myla thought their job was over, but if we push it to 2,500, they're going to have to get back to work on their committee. Stephen, to you real fast, I mean, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about Emory University and the work that you're doing there. Tell us a little bit about it and, give us what you got.
Sure. I've been at Emory for about 6 months now. I'm really enjoying it so far and settling in. We've had an exciting start to the academic year this year. First Lady Dr. Jill Biden was on our campus last week to celebrate Emory scientists. Dr. Santangelo was the first recipient of one of the grants related to their moonshot to cure cancer. And so she was here to tour that lab and learn more about the research they're doing that is also really important to me personally. I have had in my family, including my daughter, has celiac disease, folks with autoimmune conditions, and the same research. I was telling my daughter last night when we were out to dinner, she was asking about something she couldn't eat because it had gluten in it. And I was like, Emory scientists are working on something that you might be able, it might not be the rest of your life that you can't eat this.
Amazing.
So Emory, the research that happens here, the liberal arts education that happens here, the remarkable students who are educated here, it's been really gratifying to become part of that.
Over to you, Myla. What do you want to say about Cal State Dominguez Hills?
So Cal State Dominguez Hills is part of the California State University system. We are one of 23 campuses. We are located outside of Los Angeles, and we are 88% students of color. I was very intentional about coming to this institution. I've worked at predominantly white institutions my entire career until now, and it's been incredibly helpful to be in this space to learn about what students need, what specific needs they have when majority of our students are Pell eligible first generation students. It's been a learning experience for me as you're talking about communicating deadlines to people who may be food or housing insecure. You know, you kind of have to put things in perspective when that's your student base. And, you know, it's just an exciting time to be part of this institution as people are trying to figure out how to be better at diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we're part of that too, but we have a student population that most schools are trying to get. They are already here, and we've been a place for them to come since we started. But you know, last week we had an event and Cornell West was our speaker and Stevie Wonder stopped by and nobody knew he was coming. That's a benefit of being in Los Angeles. And so it's a really exciting institution, exciting time to be a part of it. And I'm proud of the work that we're trying to do and how we continue to keep students at the center. Student success is part of all of our meetings, and we talk about that with conviction.
No matter where you sit on a political spectrum, if you could be working in higher education and have the First Lady of the United States show up at your campus, or have Cornell West and Stevie Wonder just randomly stop by, I think you're doing okay. That's pretty cool, you guys. That's and talk about a little boost to marketing. It never hurts to have, you know, a physical endorsement, so to say. Anything else you want to say about the AMA Symposium for Higher Education at all? Where do we go to register? What do we do? Why should we come? Anything at all? Myla, over to you.
Yeah, I'll start. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that part of our community also includes agency vendors. And so they are also in partnership with us in improving what it is that we do. And these are not people who are just there to sell you something. Most of them are only focused on higher education clients. And so they really care about our industry. So if you are in a space where you're looking for new technology and tools, this is also a good time for you and a good place for you to come and engage with some of the vendors that are part of our community and also serve on our planning committee.
You know, let me just say one thing real quick, because if you work in marketing, or even if you don't, the partnerships you have with your vendors in marketing is so critical, because they become part of your team. And so you have to select the right company. And one of the things that's very hard to do when you do these things remote with marketing is make decisions on the relational factors, right? Because we're trying to appeal to students, and I want an organization that I'm going to work with, a company that I'm going to work with that understands my students and me. This is a good way to meet people in person that represent these organizations, so you could feel that trust take place. I really like that point, Myla, and I know that there's a lot of great companies out there looking to be great partners to higher ed. Thank you for saying that.
Absolutely.
Stephen.
Yeah, so the website to learn more and to register is ama.org, because AMA is a nonprofit. It exists to support the marketing profession, and the organization is especially committed to our industry, to higher education. This is AMA's largest in-person event, I believe, that they host. And one last thing I would mention, Myla brought up case studies being always an important part of the conference, and I think that sometimes in higher ed, we're really eager to look outside to other industries for ideas and inspiration, and we should totally do that. But then we get hung up on the small differences between our institutions, and we think that a community college can't possibly learn something from Emory, or that a 1,000-student private institution can't learn anything from the University of Arizona. And I think that's just not true. It's the narcissism of small differences. If we're looking to the entertainment industry or technology for ideas, let's also look across our sector and think how we can apply those in our own contexts.
Well said.
Well, so for sure. Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the hype. I will say that if somebody asks you if you're going to be attending the AMA Symposium Higher Education, you can only answer
100%.
So I encourage you to get registered. From experience, I can tell you that it was a very worthwhile endeavor for me when I attended in 2019. Hopefully I'll attend this year. But it was fun, engaging, and there isn't anything more fun in higher ed than marketing, is there? I mean, you're helping students, but you gotta get them first. Marketing's fun. It's amazing to talk about that kind of stuff. Thank you guys for coming on the podcast. I'm going to outro you the appropriate way with an applause because you deserve it. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Jendraszak, Assistant Vice President for Marketing at Emory University and one of the co-chairs of the AMA Symposium for Higher Education. Stephen, did you have a good time today?
I had a wonderful time. Thank you so much for having us. It was a great experience and hope we have a chance to do it again sometime.
Absolutely right. We'll have to talk after the conference and debrief. All right. And Myla Edmond. She is the Associate Vice President for Communications and Marketing at Cal State Dominguez Hills and the other co-chair for the AMA Symposium of Higher Education. Myla, thanks for coming on today. I hope you had a good time.
I did. Thanks for inviting us, and we're happy to have any conversation about marketing and higher ed that you'd like.
Well, you know, I like to have those too, so we'll have to have you guys back. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd.
Oh, yeah.
The Middle States Commission on Higher Education 2023 Annual Conference is in Philadelphia, December 4th through 6th. Setting the standard, transformation through accreditation. Remember, only you can create transformation through networking, knowledge sharing, opportunity, leadership, service, learning, and accreditation. And you'll do all those things at the Middle States Commission on Higher Education Annual Conference this December 4th through 6th. Can't wait to be there. EdUp will be there. There's going to be over 1,300 attendees, presidents, provosts. The networking opportunities are off the chain. Register now at msche.org.
Oh, yeah.
Attention higher ed marketing and enrollment management professionals. We are taking the EdUp Experience podcast to Insights EDU. Join us at Insights EDU on February 20th to 22nd, 2024 in Phoenix, Arizona. Gain insight into the latest higher education trends and cutting-edge marketing strategies that'll take your institution's enrollment to a whole new level. This is your opportunity to connect with higher education leaders and marketing experts from across the country. Comprehensive presentations, engaging panel discussions, and more. Insights EDU will equip you to position your institution for growth. Register now at insightsedu.com and use the code EdUp to save $50 off your registration. Can you afford to miss this conference?
I don't think so.